This is the Prime Minister who promised a $270 reduction in electricity bills, but they've gone up almost 50% under his government. Australians are not fools, and that was evident last weekend, and they are fed up with the politics, false promises and the blatant deceit this government shows towards them. So Australians will have that say at the next election, and hopefully this government will be gone. I've served in this parliament over the terms of 4 Prime Ministers. Prime Minister Albanese has easily been the worst of them. He promised he would lead a more accountable government in the wake of Scott Morrison's secret ministries. The Labor government's conduct in Parliament has been exactly the opposite of this principle. They have shut down debate on critical legislation, ramming through disastrous bills with the enthusiastic support of the Greens and Senator Pocock. Yesterday they refused to support Senator Price's motion supporting a Royal Commission in child sexual abuse in Indigenous communities, making the disgusting claim it was playing politics. The hypocrisy and callousness of the statement is breathtaking. The motion wasn't playing politics, but voting it down was. This is the Prime Minister who promised a $270 reduction in electricity bills, but they've gone up almost 50% under his government. Despite strong public support for my measures, Labor has refused to look into the Aboriginal industry corruption, children being treated for gender dysphoria and Indigenous identity fraud. My approach to these issues has always been in the interest of the Australian people. I am disgusted at the seat warmers in this chamber who tell me privately they agree with these initiatives and policies but refuse to support them in public. Lastly, this Prime Minister should, but will most definitely not, fall on his sword for imposing a racially divisive referendum on the Australian people and blowing more than $400 million on a lost cause. The PM can hold a robo-debt Royal Commission, but no Royal Commission into sexual abuse of children. Australians are not fools, and that was evident last weekend, and they are fed up with the politics, false promises and the blatant deceit this government shows towards them. So Australians will have that say at the next election, and hopefully this government will be gone.
Mate, buckle up, because what went down in Parliament this week wasn't just politics as usual. It was a full-blown Aussie drama, the kind you'd expect to see on telly after a couple of schooners, not in the nation's capital. From the moment Pauline Hanson marched into that chamber, you could feel the temperature rise. It wasn't just a speech. It was a warning shot, a flare, and a rhetorical uppercut all rolled into one. And at the centre of the blast zone, Anthony Albanese, C-Cop, who probably thought he was settling in for a routine sitting day, only to find himself smack in the middle of the latest political firestorm. Before we dive back into this Albanese-Hanson blow-up, smash that like button if you're over Labor's chaos. Hit subscribe if you're done with the circus, and grab the Not Far Right Just Right shirt, links in the description. The whole place felt charged, like Parliament had turned into a pressure cooker ready to blow. You could almost see the tension crackling through the air as Pauline got up, straight-backed and laser-focused, and delivered her opening line like she'd been waiting weeks to unleash it. She didn't ease in, didn't cushion it, didn't offer any friendly preamble. No, she fired straight into Albanese with the kind of blunt force only she can muster, calling him, without blinking, the worst Prime Minister she's seen in her entire time in Parliament. And let's be real, Pauline's seen more PMs than most Aussies have had hot breakfasts. That claim alone was enough to send half the chamber shifting in their seats, trying to decide whether to look shocked or pretend they didn't hear it. You could imagine Penny Wong letting out the slowest, deepest inhale known to humankind, doing everything short of counting backwards from 10 just to stop herself from rolling her eyes into the next galaxy. But Pauline wasn't done. Not even close. She'd only just got the engine started. She tore into Labor's promise of accountability with the precision of someone reading out a list of overdue library fines. Remember when Albo promised transparency? That golden age of governance he kept banging on about? Yeah, Pauline remembers it better than he does. She accused his government of shutting down debate like it was a sport, ramming through bills faster than a tradie finishing a servo pie, and doing it all with the full-throated support of the Greens tagging along like eager apprentices. The way she framed it, the whole thing sounded less like governing and more like a dodgy group project where one bloke talks big and everyone else just nods along hoping they don't get called on. Then she went straight for the jugular, the motion for a royal commission into child sexual abuse in Indigenous communities. Her voice didn't waver, didn't crack, didn't soften. It sharpened. She slammed Labor's refusal to support it as disgusting. And mate, you could feel the energy in the chamber shift instantly. That wasn't a political swipe. That was a gut punch. even if you disagree with her, you can't deny she knows how to drop a line that sticks in the air like smoke after a bushfire. She mocked Labor's excuse that it was plain politics, and the sarcasm was dripping so thick you could have scraped it off the desk. It was the kind of tone that makes politicians tense up, because they know it's landing with people at home who are sick to death of excuses dressed up as strategy. And Pauline wasn't just aiming at Labor as a whole. She had a special message for the backbenchers and Senate seat warmers who quietly mutter support in private but flip the script when the cameras roll. She called them out one by one, not by name, but by behavior, accusing them of being too scared to back their own supposed principles in public. You could practically hear the shuffle of guilty consciences echoing through the room. Then she swung into cost of living like she'd been saving the best punch for last. That old $270 electricity reduction promise? She resurrected it like a ghost from campaign season and laid it at Albanese's feet with a pointed reminder that the bills haven't gone down. They've skyrocketed nearly 50%. If Parliament had windows, kettles across the country would have whistled in agreement. Pauline doesn't do subtle, and she sure as hell didn't try to be gentle about it. She ripped through the issues like she was reading an indictment. Corruption in the Aboriginal industry, gender dysphoria treatment, identity fraud, millions wasted on the voice referendum. And every time she used the word disgusted, it hit like another log getting chucked on a roaring fire. That's her signature move, blunt, fiery, no sugarcoating in sight. Then came the line that truly cracked the atmosphere open. The Prime Minister, she said, should fall on his sword. But, and here's where her voice went from fierce to ice cold, he absolutely won't. You could see some senators tense up, others stare at the table, and a few smirk like they couldn't believe this was happening live. It was raw theatre, mate. Pure political adrenaline. And somewhere, probably in a quieter part of Parliament House, Albo himself might have been sipping tea, blissfully unaware that he'd just been rhetorically body-slammed upstairs. That's the comedy of Canberra. You can be the PM, and still the most explosive moment of the day happens without you even knowing it. But Pauline wasn't finished making her point. She dug into the irony, and she spelled it out slowly, like she wanted every word carved into the Hansard, that the PM can run a royal commission into Robodebt, but not into child sexual abuse. That line landed with an intensity that even the loudest senator wouldn't dare argue over. For a moment, that whole chamber froze solid. And then she delivered the line that echoed through the room louder than anything she'd said that day. Australians are not fools. That wasn't just a jab. That was her throwing down the gauntlet, telling the government their political sheen has worn thin, that the voting public is watching, judging, and fed up with being told everything's fine when the pantry's empty and the power bill's skyrocketing. By the time she wrapped it all up with a prediction that Labor will be tossed out at the next election, the room felt as if it had just been through a cyclone. Papers rustled. Shoulders shifted. Aides scribbled notes like their jobs depended on it. Somewhere a journalist probably mouthed, "Holy hell," without making a sound. And let's be honest, half the country will watch that speech and cheer. The other half will groan or shake their heads. But not a single person will say it was boring. Because that's the thing about Pauline. Whether you back her or reckon she goes too far, she bloody well knows how to command a room. She turns Parliament into a stage, and everyone watching becomes part of the audience whether they meant to or not. Albanese, meanwhile, wears the political dad energy like a badge of honor. Calm, steady, sometimes too relaxed for his own good. But even he'd have to admit this was one of those days you'd rather skip over in the PM diary. Penny Wong, trying to maintain her zen energy, would be quietly adjusting her papers like a mum cleaning up after a food fight, all the while thinking, not today. Please, not again. But that's the thing about Aussie politics. It's chaotic and weirdly entertaining. It's messy, loud, emotional, contradictory, and sometimes downright unhinged. And yet, under all the theatrics, there's this undeniable pulse of passion that makes it worth watching. You see how fired up people get, how fiercely they defend their patch, how unwilling they are to let things slide. And whether you reckon Pauline's a hero or a headache, she embodies that fiery spirit of saying exactly what's on your mind and letting the chips fall where they may. And Albanese? He'll take the hits, smile for the cameras, shake a few hands, and try to put out another dozen fires before lunch. That's the job. That's the gig. That's Canberra, where every day is either a slow burn or a full explosion, and you don't get to choose which one you wake up to. But this showdown? This fiery tirade? This Parliament shaking outburst? It's going to be one of those moments people talk about long after the video clips stop circulating. Pauline Hanson went straight for the jugular, and whether you cheered or cringed, it was impossible to look away. And as Australians keep dealing with rising bills, Political bickering, endless promises, and the feeling that the government is sometimes playing a different game entirely. Moments like this hit differently. They expose the cracks, the frustration, the raw nerves everyone's feeling. Pauline's speech wasn't just about Albanese. It was about the mood of the country, restless, fed up, and ready for someone to say the things people mutter under their breath at home. So grab your cuppa, because this saga isn't slowing down. Not even a little. With an election creeping closer and tempers rising, this was just round one of what's shaping up to be one of the most chaotic political showdowns Australia's seen in years. And if you thought Pauline was fired up this week, mate, wait till you see what she brings next. Smash that like button if you reckon Australia deserves better, and hit subscribe if you're done letting politicians skate by. Keep your eyes open, your beers cold, and grab the Not Far Right Just Right shirt, links in the description.